At the beginning of the 16th century, in the heart of what is now Mexico, there existed a city that defied the logic of the known world. In 1500, Tenochtitlan was not just a powerful capital, it was one of the largest cities on the planet, rivaling centers like Constantinople and Beijing in size and sophistication. But unlike any other, it was not surrounded by walls or built on hills. Tenochtitlan floated, built on the waters of Lake Texcoco. The city seemed to rise directly from the lake like an impossible vision, connected by long causeways that cut across the water and led into its urban core. From a distance, it looked like a mirage, monumental temples rising above morning mist, while orderly rows of structures, stretched in every direction, reflected in the calm waters. This visual impact was not just impressive, it was disorienting. Nothing in the European world at that time compared to that combination of engineering, scale, and integration with nature. The foundation of Tenochtitlan carried a powerful symbolic meaning. According to Mexican tradition, the location was chosen after a vision of an eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a serpent, a divine sign. What began as a small, swampy island in the 14th century quickly became one of the greatest urban achievements in pre-Columbian history. To make the location habitable, the Aztecs developed the Chinampas artificial islands built with layers of soil, vegetation, and wooden stakes anchored into the lakebed, creating fertile land for large-scale agriculture. Over time, this system sustained the growing population and expanded the city, turning the lake into a complex network of land and water. By 1500, Tenochtitlan had become a densely organized metropolis with a population likely exceeding 200,000, extraordinary for the time. The city was connected to the mainland by 3 massive elevated causeways, serving as primary access routes for people, goods, and troops. These were not just roads, they were strategic structures, with removable bridges that could isolate the city during invasion, turning the lake into a natural defense.
Inside the city, water was not an obstacle but a core part of its infrastructure. Canals cut through districts, functioning as aquatic streets where canoes transported food, materials, and people. This made movement highly efficient and gave the city a dynamic, almost living appearance. Its sophistication went further. Tenochtitlan had advanced water control systems, including aqueducts supplying fresh water and dikes separating freshwater from saltwater. This ensured supply, prevented flooding, and maintained balance. Every detail seemed carefully planned, from street orientation to the placement of temples and homes. At the center stood the sacred precinct, the political and spiritual core. The Templo Mayor dominated the skyline, a massive pyramid used for rituals connecting the human world to the divine. Around it, palaces, plazas, and administrative buildings reinforced centralized power. The city was not just functional, it was symbolic, reflecting the order of the universe according to Aztec belief. The contrast between water and land, sacred and everyday life, defined its structure. While other cities grew chaotically, Tenochtitlan followed an almost geometric plan, organizing society into clear hierarchies. Yet behind this order, a silent tension existed. In 1500, Tenochtitlan was at its peak, but also at the limits of expansion. Its wealth depended on tributes from conquered peoples, and that dependence was generating resentment. The city stood at the center of a vast system, but that same system carried hidden fragilities. To observers, it seemed invincible, a masterpiece of power and organization. But its most decisive phase was just beginning. As one crossed the causeways, the city's true scale became clearer. It was not just monumental, it was a highly organized urban system where every element had a function. The city was divided into calpulis, administrative and social districts. Each had residential areas, cultivation spaces, temples, and community centers, creating decentralized organization within centralized power. This maintained order in a growing population. Daily life was constant. Canoes moved through canals carrying goods, while elevated roads ensured mobility across water-dominated areas. This integration defined the city's identity, blending architecture and nature seamlessly. At the center was the Tlatelolco market, one of the largest in the world. Thousands gathered daily to trade goods from across the empire. The scale was immense, with tens of thousands circulating in a structured environment. Goods were organized by type, and transactions were regulated to ensure order. The economy was sophisticated, using standardized values like cacao beans and textiles. The market was also a cultural hub where different peoples and traditions met. Across the city, structures reflected power and wealth. Palaces housed elites, while well-built homes accommodated the majority. Buildings used local materials like volcanic stone and adobe, often decorated with symbolic elements. Main avenues were wide and planned for both movement and ceremonies. The sacred precinct remained the visual and spiritual center. The true strength of Tenochtitlan was integration. Supply systems moved food efficiently. Social structures maintained order, and infrastructure enabled constant mobility. Compared to many European cities facing sanitation and urban issues, Tenochtitlan showed advanced planning and execution. Yet beneath this efficiency lay deeper complexity. Prosperity depended on an expanding empire. Tributes sustained growth but created tension beyond the city. Religion, politics, and daily life were deeply connected, shaping every aspect of society. The city embodied a worldview where balance between natural and divine forces had to be maintained through ritual and control. Tenochtitlan was not just large, it was a complex system where engineering, economy, and power were interconnected. But this complexity also revealed vulnerabilities that would soon be exploited. At its core, Tenochtitlan was the center of one of the most powerful empires in the Americas. Power was absolute, concentrated in the Tenochtitlan, seen as a divine representative. The city functioned as political, spiritual, and economic center of a vast territory. Its dominance relied on military strength and a system of tribute and alliances. Conquered peoples supplied resources that sustained expansion. But this created instability, as resentment grew among subjugated populations. At the sacred precinct, the Templo Mayor symbolized divine connection. Rituals reinforced cosmic balance and state power. These practices were both religious and political, maintaining control and cohesion. Religion legitimized power, power sustained expansion, and expansion fed the city. For decades, this system worked efficiently, allowing Tenochtitlan to reach extraordinary greatness. But by the early 16th century, cracks began to appear. Rapid expansion made control increasingly difficult, and tensions spread across the empire. Then came an unexpected turning point. Foreigners arrived from the east, introducing a completely new dynamic. Led by Hernán Cortés, they brought unfamiliar technologies and formed alliances with groups opposing Aztec rule. What began as a small expedition became a serious threat. At the same time, diseases brought by Europeans spread rapidly, devastating populations with no immunity.
Definiu am textio para anarea.